I don't understand. The things he did, the things he said, I was certain he was the one.
What kind of conversation is this?
Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who does not know the things which have happened there these days?
What things?
The things concerning Jesus of Nazareth.
He was a prophet, mighty indeed, word before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we were hoping that it was he who would redeem Israel.
O foolish ones, and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. Ought not the Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? You hoped it was he who would redeem Israel.
Yes.
Was it not in the garden, when sin was birthed, that the conquering of sin was promised? From the beginning there was the promised coming of one who would smite that serpent of old, but not without suffering affliction.
What relevance does any of this have with the Messiah? You call us fools, claiming we do not believe the prophets. My entire life, I lived under the foot of Rome. The only hope I had was in the prophets, in the words they had written, in the Messiah they had promised. This Jesus, I hoped, I believed he was the one. And then they killed him.
While under the foot of other nations in Babylon, Daniel prophesied that the Messiah would be cut off, but not for his sake. David said that his hands and feet would be pierced, his garments would be divided, and for his clothing they would cast lots. Just as the rock in the wilderness had to be struck by Moses in order to bring forth water, so too the Son of Man had to be stricken to bring forth living water.
Our village is here. Please abide with us, for it is toward evening and the day is far spent.
Father, thank you for giving us this day our daily bread, that hunger may be satisfied. Remember the suffering servant, spoken of by Isaiah. He was pierced for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. The chastisement for our peace was upon him. By his wounds, we are healed.
Did not our hearts burn within us as he talked with us on the road? And as he opened the scripture to us,
We have to tell everyone.
Now, he doesn't stop there, though, because as we'll see in the next couple of verses, this is like a really good Bible study, and they don't want it to stop. So in verse 28, it says, "So they drew near to the village to where they were going, and he appeared to be going further, but they constrained him, saying, 'Stay with us. Stay with us. For it is toward evening, and the day is now far spent.'" Right? So you pause there. Try to imagine, what would that Bible study have been like? I mean, what would it have been like to walk with the risen Jesus and have him explain the Scriptures, to have him explain the Old Testament and how it pointed forward to him? I mean, I would give well, maybe not my right arm, because I use it for writing. Maybe I give my left arm to have been there and heard what he had to say. But we don't know what he talked about. We don't know which passages. We do know how they reacted, though, which is they're like, "We don't want this to stop. Stay with us. It's evening. The day is now far spent." So it continues. "So he went in to stay with them. And when he was at table with them, he took the bread and blessed and broke it and gave it to them. And their eyes were open, and they recognized him, and he vanished out of their sight. So they said to each other, 'Did not our hearts burn within us while he talked to us on the road, while he opened to us the Scriptures?' And they rose that same hour and returned to Jerusalem, and they found the 11 gathered together, and those who were with him, who said, 'The Lord has risen indeed, and has appeared to Simon.' And then they told what had happened on the road, and how he was known to them in the breaking of the bread." All right, pause there. So much going on here. Let's just walk it through really quick. First of all, notice here the setting. I just want to emphasize this again. When is all this happening? It's happening on the evening of Easter Sunday. So this is Easter Sunday evening. Secondly, notice Jesus' actions. When he sits at table with them, he does 4 things. He took the bread. He blessed the bread. He broke the bread, and he gave the bread. Right? Now, in Luke's gospel, when's the last time Jesus took the bread, blessed the bread, broke the bread, and gave the bread? Those exact same 4 verbs occur at the Last Supper. Right? So when Jesus does that, he's like reenacting the same thing he did on Holy Thursday a few days before with the disciples in the upper room when he instituted the Eucharist, when he celebrated the Last Supper. And as soon as he does that, it says their eyes were open and he vanished out of their sight. And they recognized him. They recognized him in the breaking of the bread. Right? So the question is, why does Jesus vanish? Why does he disappear? Right? Is this like a magic trick? You know, now you see me, now you don't. Why would he do that to them? Especially when their words to him were, "Stay with us." And I think here the answer is, it's simple, but it's profound. Namely this, is that he's trying to get them to direct their eyes, their vision, to the way he's going to be with them from now on, which is in the Eucharist itself, in the breaking of the bread. In other words, he does answer their prayer. When they ask him to stay with them, he does stay with them, but now he's going to remain with them in a different way. He's not going to be in his body, in his local presence as he's been before in his earthly body. Now he's going to come to them under the appearance of the bread, under the appearance of the bread and wine, under the appearance of the Eucharist, so that he can be with them always, even till the end of time, but in a new form, and in a way that he's not located or limited to one location in one place. He can be in Emmaus, he can be in Jerusalem, he can be in Galilee, he can be in Rome, he can be in France, he can be in all these different places now in the breaking of the bread. So this is a revelation of the Eucharist. In a sense, what you could say is, this is the first Mass that Jesus celebrates after the Last Supper. It's the first Mass after the resurrection. And these 2 choice disciples get to experience this, and the fact that he is known to them in the breaking of the bread. Now you might think, well, how's that even possible? Think about it for just a second. In Jesus' risen body, he's no longer bound by space. In his glorified body, he's no longer bound by time. He can walk through walls, as we've seen him do elsewhere. He can hide his appearance, as we've seen him do at the beginning of this chapter. So in the Eucharist, that's exactly what he's doing. He's coming to us, but he's hiding himself under the appearances of bread and wine. And that's what happens here on the road to Emmaus. All right. Now, there's another aspect of this story. As you're reading through this, you might have noticed here that there are really two movements to the way Jesus engages with these apostles, with these disciples, I should say. First, he reads the scriptures to them, starting with the Old Testament, and he explains them. And then second, he sets a table, he takes the bread, he blesses, he prays, he breaks it, and he gives it to them. Do those two movements sound familiar? Well, yes, those are the two fundamental parts of the Mass, right? If you look at the Mass, the Catechism of the Catholic Church says this in paragraph 1346, that the fundamental structure of the Mass consists of two great parts. First, the liturgy of the Word, where we have the gathering, the scriptural readings, the homily, the explanation, and the prayers of intercession. And then second, the liturgy of the Eucharist, right? Where we have the offertory, the Eucharistic prayer, and then of course the communion, right? So it's fascinating that even in the liturgy of the Word too, what do? We go back to the Old Testament. We have the reading from the Old Testament, and then we have a reading from the New Testament letters, and then the Gospel, and we see how the Old prefigures the New, and the New fulfills the Old. Exactly what Jesus did on the first Easter Sunday. So in a sense, every Sunday of the year in the Eucharistic liturgy, in the Mass, actually in a sense every day, we are reliving and participating in the mystery of Emmaus. That same experience of the apostles, of the disciples on the road to Emmaus. In fact, the Catechism says this in paragraph 1347 about the Mass and the road to Emmaus, and I quote, "Is this not the same movement as the Paschal meal of the risen Jesus with his disciples?" In other words, that twofold movement of word and sacrament is the same movement of the meal of the risen Jesus with his disciples on the road to Emmaus. I stress this for you also because sometimes, and at least in my experience, Catholics, there can be a temptation to check out during the liturgy of the Word. In other words, I came here to receive the Eucharist, so that's really what I'm here for. And when the readings start to be proclaimed, I can kind of zone out, maybe get distracted. Or when the homily is proclaimed, I'm drifting off, I'm not paying attention. Well, that is, you're missing a fundamental part of the Mass. The only reason these disciples were able to see Jesus in the breaking of the bread is because he'd already prepared their hearts by teaching them through the Word, by unpacking the Scriptures, by opening the Scriptures, and leading them back to faith through the typology of the Old and New Testaments. That's what gave them faith in order to recognize him in the mystery of the breaking of the bread. So we would do well to pay attention, to listen carefully to the liturgy of the Word, and not just the Eucharist, because it's really the Word that's going to till up the soil of the heart and enable us to see Jesus in the breaking of the bread, because he's invisible, right? It doesn't look like Jesus, it looks like bread and wine, but he's actually present in his glorified body, in his resurrected body, which isn't bound by space and time and can do those kind of things.
Trust in